Today we're heading to Chicago's North Shore to step inside the lovingly restored 1890 Queen Anne Victorian home of interior designer Meghan Jay. Drawn to the charm and history of old homes, Meghan and her husband instantly felt connected to this historic house. Meghan embraced the opportunity to reimagine it with her classic, colorful style suited for everyday family life. From a bright, colorful entryway to a floral-wrapped guest room, every room is layered with character, collected treasures, and nods to the home's history.
It was important for me to have this house feel like it's a Victorian, because it is, but I didn't want it to be dark and heavy feeling. I pulled a lot of colors that are typical of the Victorian era, but I wanted them to feel fresher and brighter and more playful.
To watch Meghan's full home tour ad-free, where she shares her cozy family room, scan the QR code on screen or visit homeworthyplus.com for access to all of our latest episodes ad-free and to receive other exclusive membership perks.
Hi Homeworthy, I'm Meghan. Welcome to my home in Evanston, Illinois. Come on in.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story. I'm Allison Kenworthy, the founder of Homeworthy, and we take you inside the world's most beautifully decorated homes and introduce you to the brilliant people who live there.
Hi Homeworthy, I'm Liz Lang. Welcome to Grey Gardens.
Click the join button below to access all of our latest episodes ad-free and watch extended cuts of this and other homes, opening the doors to new rooms and exclusive content featuring our beloved hosts.
I can't wait to see, I'm so excited.
And if you're looking to shop items inspired by this and other Homeworthy tastemakers, be sure to use the product links below or scan the QR code on screen to find fabulous furniture, coffee table books, and accessories that can transform your house into a home.
Hi Homeworthy, my name is Meghan Jay. I'm an interior designer based in Evanston, Illinois. Welcome to my home. So we moved to Evanston from Chicago, and it was really important to both of my husband and myself to find a house that had architectural details. He grew up in a house with a lot of character, as did I, and I obviously wanted a place to have a bit of a project. So it's a Queen Anne Victorian built in 1890. And I knew immediately the bones were amazing, but it did need a good amount of work. Thankfully, the electrical, the plumbing, the HVAC had been upgraded, so we didn't need to tackle that, but it did need a good amount of cosmetic love. So when we first walked into the house, we were immediately struck by how dark it was. There were no overhead lights. Everything was painted brown. I don't know why, but even the ceilings were like a horrible muddy brown color. I could tell it was, just painting, adding lighting, wallpaper. We opened up a few things. I knew that it was gonna make an incredible impact to this house, which already had beautiful bones. So this is our living room, and it was a bit of a tricky space to design because, as you can see, it's very long, and so it's a combination living and dining room. And originally, I had these chairs on the other side, and after a while, it started to feel like this is just a room of chairs. So it was actually important to think about how the groupings were going to be, how things were going to be laid out and create groupings so that it didn't feel like a room of chairs. So the yellow sofa, I love the color yellow and I think it's so happy, but it just also provides like a good differentiator between the two spaces in this room. I love mixing color and patterns. So you'll see on the sofa, there's a great Antoinette Poisson fabric. This is perennial, so this is actually performance. As well as I always buy like Suzanne and vintage pillow covers. I think it's another way to add like a layer of interest and character and color and pattern. everything in here is performance. So, or if it's not performance, I've sealed it. So the rug is a beautiful wool piece from my friend Davin, who he's up in Montreal and makes such beautiful, like classic, clean, elegant rugs. His line is called Mark Krebs, and it feels cozy and it's neutral, which I think it was important. While I love color, it was important to have your eye rest somewhere. And while this rug is neutral, it still has a lot of great texture to it and coziness to it, and feeds off of all of these other colors and patterns, while also creating a way to create a grouping of furniture. I think rugs are so helpful in doing that. So anytime there's a focal point behind a coffee table, I really prefer to use a glass top coffee table. And sometimes clients are a little bit hesitant because of kids. Obviously you don't want anybody getting hurt, but usually these are so heavy that it's very, I knock on wood, never encountered having anyone topple over or create an issue. So I think it creates an architectural interest when you walk into this space, but it doesn't take away from the beautiful vintage mantle that I've installed. So I think it was a way to, again, create like a focal point and a bit of interest without detracting from things that are going on around it. And then in addition to painting and opening up, like changing the configurations of these openings in the hallway, we immediately demoed this fireplace. It was a monstrosity. I'm pretty sure it was put in like the 50s or 60s, and it just did not go with the style of the house at all. It was brick, and again, it was a muddy brown color, and so it completely overpowered the room. So even if I changed the paint and the lighting and the furniture, it was always going to be a presence. So it was really important for us to demo it. And then I sourced this beautiful mantle, which was also from 1890, which is the home our house was built, but it was taken out of a graystone home in Chicago. And it just feels like it's been here forever. It truly was meant to be. And the surround, I went to a shop in Chicago where they had it in a back room, and I think it was in 4 pieces, and it was very, very gray. It did not look like this at all. So I, again, took a little convincing with my husband, but I was like, let's just do it. I think like if we clean it up, it's gonna look just absolutely stunning. So the mantle and this is called a summer screen. So in the Victorian times when it was nice outside, obviously they didn't need to have wood burning, so they would just put this decorative piece over it during the warmer months. And this piece and the mantle were taken from 2 distinct fireplaces. So I had to bridge them with a filler. So this is I just had my stone fabricator find me a white remnant to bridge the 2, because unfortunately this mantle, it didn't come with a summer screen, and I really wanted to have one. Again, just adds that kind of like refined old world feel. Again, I love going to Round Top, Texas, and this is a mirror that I found from a French dealer there. It's a Louis Philippe mirror, and I just have it leaning on, it is bracketed on the wall, but I just have it leaning. And typically I don't usually style around it. Aside from the holiday season, I just think that like the mirror and the fireplace combined are such a stunning focal point when you first walk into the house that I like to keep it fairly clean. But I did, for you guys, add a little bit of floral branches, and I think it does really complement the fireplace and the mirror quite nicely. When you walked in, the radiators were in weird spots, and I was told by someone, I guess it was our GC, that technically radiators should be under windows. So I thought, okay, well, I think it makes sense to to then move them. So we created like the radiators here, but I wanted it to then feel like a functional area of the room. So I had a carpenter make us some radiator covers and popped a cushion on here, and now this is a sweet little reading area, and my daughter loves actually sitting up here and looking out the window, which is really nice. A unique trait of Queen Anne Victorian architecture is that the windows are asymmetric. So when I was thinking about window treatments, it became clear that draperies were going to be really tricky because the heights of the windows in this room are completely different. So if I were to run a curtain rod across, the curtain rods were going to be at different planes. I then, was like, well, I think cafe curtains are the way to go then, because not only are they adding like a little bit of detail to the windows, but each of the curtain rods can then be on the same plane, which then makes, while the windows are different sizes, in a way it helps make them feel more cohesive. And they're just like, they're great because they still let light in, even when you have them closed, which again, I really wanted to focus on lighting in this house because it felt so dark, as I said, when we moved in. So the lighting, the paint, the window treatments, these are all things that I factored in to make the space feel more light and airy. And on them, I actually combined two different fabrics. There's a Schumacher stripe, and then this cameo fabric is by Christy Stafford, and she's actually a wallpaper and fabric designer here in Chicago. So it's just like playful, whimsical, and I really thought it did an amazing job of bridging together all of these colors that I have going on the first floor. So, and there's like a vintage quality to it. Perhaps it's this cameo shape. This is a piece that I bought from Cherish, and I think maybe it's my husband's favorite piece. It's a Victorian era table that folds up and rotates. So a nice thing about it is like, you can tuck it away and then like pull it out when you actually want to use it. And these chairs I also bought at Round Top, again from a French dealer there, and I believe they're from the 1920s. And I didn't upholster them. They are like the perfect color. I saw them, I was like, these chairs are me personified. Like I fell in love with them immediately. Did a horrible job of negotiating because I love them so much, but they just like go with this dark teal peacock green color that I have throughout the house, and the pink buttons on them were a big inspiration to my dining chairs, which I'll show you. But yeah, this has just become like a nice little cozy area. The radiator, while it looks old and it looks like the one in the hallway, this is actually new, and it was made by a British company called Castrads. And they have different styles of radiators. They don't just do this like Rococo look, but they also have more minimalist, more like European style radiators, and they'll paint them for you in any color you want. So this is Fairwind Ball Brinjal, and it's got like that perfect reddy purple aubergine color that I think also ties in nicely with this artwork. This is by an artist based in Michigan, so fairly local, and again, felt very like, her name is Hope Olson, and I followed her work for a while and always loved how whimsical and playful it is, and I just felt like, again, the colors were perfect for this space. So these chairs are by a company called Row. They're based in Virginia. They make beautiful upholstered goods, and while they look old, they're new, obviously, and they're also really comfortable. And it was important for us to, again, not only find pieces that were beautiful, but also felt functional. So my husband, I know, enjoys sitting here, reading a book. They're also performance as well. So our kids can sit here, and I have no worries. And then the two cushions I made, I really wanted to repeat this round shape throughout the room, because I think it first came about because of the cameo pattern in the cafe curtains. And then some of the pillows have this motif, and the buttons and the light fixture. It was important for me to think about how that shape was going to carry throughout the space. And just it's amazing how, the shape of your pillow can even influence how everything feels connected and how it can all come together. So again, when we first moved in, the ceilings were brown and there were no overhead lights, and our beautiful brown fireplace was here. So you can imagine it was quite dark. So by opening up the openings into the room and adding the new window and considering the paint in here plus the lighting, it feels so much more open and light and airy while still having that like Victorian character. But I knew I wanted to go more modern with the lighting. And this is a piece by Julie Neal for visual comfort that I fell in love with years ago, and I always wanted to find a place for it. It just, again, like it has that, traditional vibe while still being very modern. I think it's just that perfect bridge between the two that I absolutely love. And it still feels light and airy while creating a more architectural interest, more of like a sculptural interest almost on the ceiling, while providing that like functional light that we really needed in the space. Now let's walk over to the dining room. So in between our living room and dining room area, there's a hole in the ground, and it's pretty cool what's in here. So this was, or is, a dumbwaiter that goes all the way down to the basement, and they would crank it up and bring the firewood from the basement up to the fireplace. We don't really use the fireplace, so we haven't used it for this purpose, but my husband keeps saying that he's gonna turn it into a bar. And when we have people over, like crank up a cooler of beers or champagne. So yeah, and the nice thing too is my kids, there's a gym in this room downstairs, and when the kids have friends over, they often go and play down there, and I'll like leave this open if I'm hanging out with adults here and call down and be like, everything's going okay down there? Or if I hear like kids yelling, I'd be like, stop fighting. It's like the perfect, and then they're like, where's that sound coming from? And it makes them like stop fighting immediately. So it's my perfect little hidden hatch. So this is a built-in that was existing when we moved in. I don't think it is original. I've been trying to figure it out, but at some point someone put some knob and tube wiring into it, so I think it was potentially put in the early 20th century. But irregardless, we moved in and I fell in love with it because, creating something like this would be expensive and would be hard to do. So it was really important for me to make it feel like a focal point in the space. And again, going back to the radiators, we moved radiators over here to under both of these windows, and I had these covers made in the same wood species that the built-in is made in, and then stained to match so that it feels like they're cohesive. It feels like this was all, made at the same time, or at least I hope that's the goal. But yeah, I'm not, I think it's really curious to have all of these little drawers. My kids really like putting random things in there, and I use them for candles and coasters and napkins. It's actually really nice functional storage to have. Yeah, so this chair was another Facebook Marketplace find. I have a couple of them. I really love, these are called Parsons chairs, where the arms and the legs are all upholstered, because it's an opportunity to like showcase fabric on one big chair, in one chair. So this I love menswear inspired fabrics, and this is a green and white houndstooth, again a performance velvet fabric that I placed on here, and it just, I think the chair was $40, and now it looks pretty nice. So we, as I said, we do like to entertain and have friends over. So it was important to find a house that had a good space for entertaining and to have a nice dining table. But I was just struck by, dining tables can be so expensive. And again, when you have kids and they're like pounding on them with like, their fork and knife. It just, I looked to Facebook Marketplace first to see if we could find something vintage, and sure enough, I found this table. It's the perfect size and has a couple leaves so we can reduce the size of the table if needed. It is mahogany. So again, sometimes with these wood tones that have more of a red undertone to them, it can be hard to refinish them in another wood or another brown color because they maintain that reddish tone. So again, just like with our stairs, I went dark with this and did, I think it was like a combination, a mix of like an ebony and an espresso stain. I didn't want it to feel like too dark and oppressive. But yeah, this, I want to say it was like $400 on Facebook Marketplace. So it's amazing how you can just, find a vintage piece that, fits a space perfectly, and you can breathe all new life into it. So the chairs are old dining chairs that we had. And they're cute. But I was so inspired by those round top chairs, the ones by the game table, that I wanted to make my own slip cover. And slip covers are just so practical when you have kids or if you entertain a lot because you can just pull them off and have them dry cleaned. So I had these custom made, and you can see the button detail here kind of echoes what was on the game chairs. So the light is another visual comfort piece. And again, I feel like it's a great combination of that modern meets traditional vibe. It's, I believe it's called the Van Dome chandelier. And I do have plans to swap out the shades at some point to add even more color and pattern, but I just love like the arch to it. There's something so graceful about it, but again, it still feels clean and modern. So the sconces are also from Visual Comfort, and they're the same style as the chandelier. Again, because this room was long and required lots of different pieces, I didn't want to start just like throwing different things together. I really like that there's this cohesive look between the chandelier and the sconces. It makes it feel more traditional in a way, especially because, in traditional dining rooms, you have pieces that match. Oftentimes people will have a dining table that matches the finish on their chairs, or people will have a dining table that matches their sideboard. Nothing else matches in here, so it was a way to create some kind of cohesion just through the lighting. The sideboard is a piece that I bought on Cherish. It's, again, a very long wall, and so this piece is over 100 inches. It was tricky to find, and it is mahogany as well. And again, I didn't want to just strip it and restain it because it would have that red inherent tone to it. So I decided to do something completely different and lacquered it. This like kind of a seafoam green color, and the walls I believe they're Faro and Ball Cromartie, which is technically a green, but has a good amount of gray to it. And I think this piece, the seafoam greenness of it, up against the walls, it almost, to me, enhances the green undertones in the wall color. I feel like if this wasn't here and it was like a black piece, the walls would continue feeling a little bit gray. But there's something about this that really like brings out the green undertones in the wall color. So the art is by an artist called Lori Glabin, and she paints it, but she also creates, it's almost like a decoupage of very thin pieces of paper. And I just loved how this piece, again, tied in all of the colors in the space while feeling fresh and modern. And it has this, it does like kind of still have this painterly quality to it. So while it's geometric, it feels soft and complements everything else in the room really nicely. So, while I buy art, if I see a piece of art and I love it, I'll buy it and then ultimately find a place for it. Sometimes I also buy art, admittedly, because it goes well with the other items in the space. And it just so happened that I came across this piece while I was designing the dining room. And it almost worked as like a bridge fabric for me, where it was a way to pull colors together and make this space feel cohesive. And then for styling, I often use vintage pieces. There's a vintage shop 2 blocks away from my house, and I go there way too often. And then I also have a lot of pieces that I inherited from my grandmother and my 2 great aunts. So this tray is actually, this was my grandmother's, and I lived in New York for 11 years, and I moved with it, like to each apartment I lived in. It was kind of fancy, but pretty sure when I was like 22, it was a way that I showcased my vodka bottles, and now it's a way to showcase a beautiful tea set. So, it's kind of evolved with me and my life, but it's a piece that's always been really special to me. And then Napoleon, this was just a fun find. I believe it's a plate by John Darien, and I bought it at Jason Home in Chicago, which is a great store if you're ever in Chicago. I really love France, and I've traveled there often and very inspired by my trips there, and I just felt like it was a nice nod to that, while also the colors are perfect and brings everything together nicely and doesn't compete with this Lori Glavin piece. It complements it. How I would describe my home style is eclectic. I definitely lean towards pulling traditional and transitional pieces, but I really like it to feel colorful and playful and characterful. It was important for me to have this house feel like it's a Victorian, because it is, but I didn't want it to be dark and heavy feeling. I pulled a lot of colors that are typical of the Victorian era, but I wanted them to feel fresher and brighter and more playful. So yeah, I think generally my style leans transitional, but I do like a good mix of old and new. So you'll always see vintage pieces in the house combined with a modern lamp or modern lighting. I like to do a mix so it feels really fresh and playful. I'm so happy with living in a house that has a project or is a project itself, whereas I know that's not everybody's cup of tea. But for me, I think living in a historic home, there's just so much innate character to it. And, thankfully this house did come with some beautiful millwork, which I really wanted to keep and even enhance in some ways. So it was, I think I've always wanted to live in a place that felt like it had a good amount of character and history to it. And I should also say I'm from New England, and the majority of the houses in my town were built 100 plus years ago. There are some houses in my town in Connecticut that are from the 1700s. So I just grew up with a lot of historic homes, and again, have an appetite for projects. Welcome to our entry. So this is the hallway you see when you first walk into our house. And originally, it looked very different. So one of the first things I wanted to do when we moved in was try to equate the sizes of the different openings. Because when you first walked in, each entryway, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, they were each a different size, and a couple of them had doors on them. So it felt it was like the hallway of doors, and I wanted it to feel more open, but still have, differentiating spaces. I didn't want it to feel like a open concept house. Since it is a Victorian, I really wanted to keep in that style. So you'll see that as we walk through that it's connected to a few other spaces in our house. We've got our living room, our dining room, and our kids' playroom, and then the family room and the kitchen in the back. So this is really the heart of the home when you walk in. And I thought back and forth whether or not to add millwork, but because I wasn't sure how we were ultimately going to use the space, I just went for wallpaper. I think anytime you feel a space is lacking architectural character, but you don't want to yet spend all that money on millwork, wallpaper is a great way to start. It immediately adds architectural interest and character to a space. So this is a wallpaper from Morris & Co. And the nice thing about Morris & Co. is most of the papers were developed in the late 1800s, which is very in keeping with the age of this house as it was built in 1890. But they update all of the colorways. So while this is a historic paper, it's called Larkspur, it's done in a more like fresh palette with pops of peach and marigold and blues. So again, it doesn't have that oppressive, typical Victorian look or feel to it. It feels vintage and yet it's still fresh and modern. So that was, in addition to the openings and the wallpaper, I wanted it to feel like it's cohesive with the areas that are around it. So as we walk through, you'll notice that a lot of the colors that you see here are in the adjoining rooms, because I think when you have a connecting space, it's important for it to feel unique, but it also has to flow with the spaces around it. And then I did do a good mix of vintage and modern too. So the artwork is by a painter. She actually lived in Highland Park, Illinois, and it's mid-century. So that has a more like graphic, modern feel to it. While the secretary desk, this is actually my husband's, and I believe it's his great-grandmother's. So this piece has been all over the country. At some point, it got converted into a secretary desk. And this is so nice to have in the front hallway. It not only tucks away all of my office like supplies, stamps and envelopes and whatnot, but it's a great landing spot too. So when you walk in the door, it's a nice place to put the mail. And again, trying to think about things being functional in addition to being pretty. Really, again, wanted this space to feel like a great connector to the spaces that are around it and be more open than it originally was, and have that good mix of old and new. This bench was a $40 Facebook Marketplace find, and it's one of my favorites. I've moved with it a couple times, and it's just it's you know, fairly shallow and it fits in all sorts of places. I've used it in a photo shoot at the foot of a bed, but it's perfect here because it provides a little bit of visual interest below the painting and yet doesn't take up much room, so you still have enough space to like walk through here. And then too, if we're entertaining and somebody is sitting at the desk and then somebody can sit over here. So it kind of creates another furniture grouping in our hallway, but still allows it to be functional because people have to come through. So these doors are original to the house, and they were originally on another one of these openings, but I wanted the back portion of the house to be closed off. I mean, it's still open, obviously. You can still open them up and easily access the kitchen and the family room, but for entertaining purposes, I personally like having the family area or the kitchen away from the general group of and entertaining that I'm doing. So I think that it's not only like an original architectural detail, which is amazing to have, but it is providing a function for me and allowing me to, again, like close things off if like I'm having adult time with friends up here, but the kids are in the TV room watching a movie or something. It's like, okay, let's just close this. Great. And they're pretty. So yeah, it also adds a bit of architectural interest. Like when you first walk into the space, it really like grounds this opening too, I think. And then the stairwell here was something I immediately fell in love with. The millwork is really unusual. I've never seen this kind of like subway tile molding, and someone bought me a gift, a book about Queen Anne Victorian homes, and I did see a couple other homes in the book that had this, but I just never come across it before. So I thought it was really unique and just makes this space feel like its own area. The newel post was covered in I think they said like 6 layers of paint or something. It took, I hired a furniture restorer to strip this. And I think it took him a week. It was a horrible greeny brown color. Again, I'm not sure why they went with so much brown in this house, but it was a horrible color. And this is actually stained. I tried matching the stain of this with the floor stain, but because they're 2 different species, the floors are red oak and the stairs are maple. The maple had so much inherent redness to it that they were never going to get to a place where if they were both brown, they looked nice with each other. So I just went dark, and this is an ebony stain that I added here. The runner is by Roger Oates, and again, while I love broadloom for runners, I really wanted to incorporate something geometric to break up all of the floral wallpaper. So the nice thing about Roger Oates is they already have these runners with stripes and other like really cool geometric patterns in certain sizes. So you can easily go and say, I want this runner in this size, versus doing a broadloom carpet that's like cut down to the specifications of your stairs. So yeah, I think this, in a lot of Victorian homes, the stairs and the entryway is such a focal point, and with a little bit of time and attention to it, I think it's become a real, again, like at the heart of our home. It's something you walk into, and then it leads into all of these other areas. So I wanted it to feel welcoming, historic, and also modern. Before we wallpapered, I painted our radiators pink, and my husband was a little taken aback and a little confused about what direction we were going in, but I told him to trust me, and thankfully he did. And I don't think it's pink. I call it terracotta, but it really coordinates nicely with the Morris wallpaper. And I mean, this stunning cast iron radiator, I'm so glad we have a few of them in their house, and they're so beautifully ornate. You can see the detail there. So I thought it would be fun to paint it and really draw attention to it. And then we have as my kids say, our Harry Potter closet. It's just a great storage closet. Next to it, I have another drop zone place to put like hats and purses. This is a piece I actually bought in Round Top, Texas from an antique dealer. It's a chest from Sweden. I believe they call them marriage chests, where you'll see there's a monogram, a hand-painted monogram on it. So again, I loved like the floral details and the hand-painted quality to it. I think it's kind of an unexpected piece that adds another layer of charm and character to just this little corner. So here's our kitchen / breakfast room area. It was, again, very important for me to make it feel light and bright and airy. And I chose this wallpaper, which kind of has an animal print to it, but it also has, if you look closely, has a bit of a stripe, like a vertical stripe, which really helps bring your eye up and make the space look taller. It's that trick of the eye. So the kitchen was actually remodeled before we moved in. They had a fire, unfortunately, in 2017 or 2018, so it was before we moved in, and remodeled quite a bit. But I've taken it and I've changed a few things to make it feel like us. Not only the wallpaper, but the lighting and the hardware. We swapped out a couple of appliances. So this space has definitely, while the bones were here, I've taken the time to make it feel more unique to us. And I think it's a good lesson if you move into a house that has a white kitchen, or if something feels very neutral, there are still ways to make it express your style and point of view. Another thing I incorporated was another Morris & Co. fabric. So that's that like late 19th century textile wallpaper designer, and it just feels, again, like very much the era of the home, but brings in a bit of whimsy and color as well. And these countertops were here, and I just love them so much. Sometimes clients get worried about using marble in kitchens, and you can see, like, I'm sure you can see on camera, there's like some etching, so you start to show rings or like there's staining. But over time, I think as it patinas, it feels full of character, and it's extremely durable too. I mean, in terms of like taking heat, and I can put a pot on here, so I just love it. And we actually did a different, I had them do a different finish on the island versus the perimeter counters. So the perimeter counters were, you can see they have a bit of a sheen to them. I honed this to give it a different look. And yeah, it's just such a beautiful piece. So while I didn't technically design this kitchen, I took the time and the effort to make a few changes that now feels like us. And I think it's timeless and still has that like modern and airy vibe to it. So in the kitchen, there were only can lights. Remember, there were only can lights, and there were so many can lights. Like the ceiling looked like Swiss cheese. So I canceled a lot of them and added 2 overhead fixtures to create more of like just 2 moments. And this is a piece by Lucent Light Shop that I've loved their pieces for so long. To me, it feels inspired by French bistros. There's something about it that just felt like very French, very vintage, and they can do custom sizes and drop heights. So this, again, the ceilings are slightly low in here, so it was nice. I was able to work with them to create a piece that felt like it wasn't going to be too low over our island. So this is our little breakfast nook, which again is really nice to have in the kitchen when I'm cooking, and if the kids are eating or doing their homework or coloring here, it's so functional. This light fixture is something that I had made. I really wanted a fabric shade, and this is actually a fabric that I purchased on Etsy. It was really inexpensive. I think like $20 a yard or something like that. So I had the pendant made, and then the table is another Facebook Marketplace find. It was $100, and I had the top refinished and the legs painted, just to make it feel like, a bit charming and vintage. The grills were added, and these are by Armac Martin, which is a British brand. You can change, you can customize the finish and the little rosette. I love the vintage quality to them, and again, it brings a little touch of a little French vibe to the kitchen, which is what I really wanted to achieve. So these are sconces also from Lucent Light Shop, and this was another scenario where the J-box were in those locations, and I didn't want to pay to move them. So if you look, it would have been nice if we were to move them, I would have centered them in the middle point here of the piece of artwork, but I was able to source these, which allowed me to keep the J-boxes where they are, but bring the center of the light fixture down to that middle point or close to the middle point of the artwork. So another area where I was like, is it worth spending the money? Like I can just spend a little bit more time sourcing something that'll achieve that look that I want. And the painting is done by a local artist here. I believe she is located on the North Shore of Chicago, but we came across her work at an art festival here in Evanston, and she is just so talented and so quick. Like, she will do a lot of plein air studies that are absolutely beautiful. So this is something that I had commissioned by her, and because it had been tricky to find something that was quite so wide. The wall is is long, so it was important to find something that, was horizontal, that was gonna really fill the space. And this is a painting of Evanston Beach, close to our house, and she added the skyline in the background, even though it's not really realistic and the skyline doesn't look that close in real life, but my husband really wanted a nod to the Chicago Loop being nearby. I have 2 little kiddos, they're 4 and 6, and our house is well lived in. I mean, as much as I love for things to look nice, it has to be practical. So even in the room behind me, which is our formal living room, everything is performance. I have slip covers on my dining chairs that can easily be dry cleaned. And I have good storage solutions for all of the toys to go away. So it's even, again, like, it's important for me to feel like the house is cohesive and looks lovely should somebody walk in the door. I always think about, like, okay, well, what's going to work practically from a longevity standpoint? What fabric is going to last? What's going to allow us to have things look organized? What kind of bins do we need? What kind of bookcases? It's a combination. I'm always thinking about aesthetics along with functionality and durability, always. So now we're in the kids' playroom, which is right off that front hallway. So you see it right when you walk into the house. And a lot of people think I'm crazy, like, why would you put your kids' stuff like front and center in your home? But it's just the stage of life I'm in right now. So I think if it's helpful to have your kids near you, I'm like very pro going for it. And then I really wanted this room to feel welcoming too, and again, cohesive with the other spaces around it. So while it is serving a function, my kids play in here all of the time, which is, of course they should. It also looks nice and coordinates with the areas around it. So the green tones are, pulled from that pull into that piece in the hallway, that mid-century painting. And then I do have wallpaper in here as well, up on the ceiling, just to add a little bit of visual interest. So when you first walk into the space, it doesn't look like super patterned, but when you look up at the ceiling, there's a bit of a surprise, which I think is fun and feels whimsical, which is perfect for a kid's space. This wallpaper I purchased from Lulu in Georgia, and it was designed by Riley and crew. So the fireplace was here when we moved in. It's definitely not original. I've been told that this is from France. This is a metal surround from France. And you can see it's not original because at some point somebody built up the hearth to make it work. It's also decorative, so while I have wood in there, it does not function. We could get it to function, but I think it would be quite a lengthy process to get it to work. Honestly, it's so fun to have in a kid's space. I think it's unexpected, and I really enjoy decorating it during the holidays as well. We put garland on here and a wreath on the mirror. It's just a fun way to have, I feel so lucky to have all of these fireplaces in my house. It provides so much character. It's really nice. And then the mirror is another Louis Philippe mirror that I picked up in Round Top, Texas. There's a lot of black accents in this room, and so I think the mirror was a way, the tones of it was a way to tie in the tone of the fireplace and the artwork and the darkness in the wallpaper. It just works nicely. And while it's a really nice mirror for a kid's space, anytime you put a mirror in a room, it makes it feel lighter and brighter. So I think that was the goal here, for it to feel like a moment. And I think it's totally fine to have a moment, even though it's a kid's room. So the artwork is actually from Cherish, and they are they're from a calendar, I believe, from the 1930s. And I just love the primary colors and the pop of black, and they also have really nice sayings on them too. So it was a fun way to bring a little whimsy and charm into the space while still feeling vintage and unique. And yeah, it was just perfect. It really pulls things together. And then like any playroom, you need some functional storage, right? So These bins I bought on Amazon to house some toys, but I actually used my hot glue gun and adhered these pom-poms onto them so they look a little cute and playful and unique. I spent a lot of time on like Etsy and looking at the Container Store to try to find some fun storage, and it just, yes, for some reason this popped into my mind that I could make some fun storage. So we had a photo shoot here, and I think it was like an hour before the photo shoot, I just got my hot glue gun and I started putting poms on them. But they're great because they're cute and they serve a function. They tuck away all of like the toys and the dress-up clothes, and still makes it feel like pulled together. So this rug is actually from Stark, and normally I wouldn't put such a nice rug in a kid's space, but I found it at an estate sale, so it was so reasonably priced. And then it's all wool, so I had it sealed, and now it's super durable and very, very cozy because the kids play on the floor a lot, so it's really nice to have like something comfortable to sit on. The world map rug is my son's, and he is so good at geography. It's shocking. He's 6 years old, and I swear he teaches me something new every day. So it was a way to bring in something personal into the space. And also too, I find that small rugs on top of larger rugs create these little vignettes, which is really nice. It makes a space feel cozy. So you can come sit over here, you can come sit over there. It kind of, even though we don't have like a sofa and chairs in this room, it still creates different vignettes, different groupings. The light fixture is by Visual Comfort, and I wanted to find something that didn't compete with the wallpaper on the ceiling. And again, still felt whimsical and vintage. And I just feel like this piece is so beautiful. It has that like a botanical, organic quality to it. And it provides a lot of interest, but it doesn't compete with the other things that are going on. This dollhouse was actually mine, and my dad made it when I was a kid. It used to be pink and purple. Those, unsurprisingly, were my favorite colors. But at some point, my mom, I think she drove it out here from Connecticut, and I decided to repaint it. And I also added these shingles on too. So it's been, like you can see, it's well loved. It's missing some pieces, but my daughter really enjoys playing with it. And we also decorate it for Christmas too, and add like little wreaths on the windows. It's really cute. So we're in the attic bedroom space, and when we first moved in, this was technically a bedroom, but we very quickly learned that there is no HVAC or insulation in this room. So it was important for us to be able to use it if people came and visited. So the first thing we did was we opened up the ceiling and we added insulation, and we also extended the HVAC, so there's actual heat, forced heat and air conditioning coming into the space. So that was the first step. But as I said, I always really wanted to design a little nook room like this, and it was like just the perfect opportunity for it, because this alcove space, there wasn't a bed here previously, and I felt like adding a bed was going to be a perfect way to square off the room. Because if we were to just put in a bed and have it on one of the walls, then it would take up a good amount of real estate. So squaring off the little nook here is perfect, because now my kids come up and they use it as another little playroom too. So I was very much inspired by British interiors and wanted it to have like kind of that cottagey feel to it, very whimsical. The wallpaper there are actually two wallpapers, and they're both from Faro and Ball. So I kind of wanted to give myself a challenge of incorporating two, and seeing how I could put them together. Especially, it was a little bit tricky because the stripe has a little bit of a like peachy undertone to it. So it's not like the two wallpapers are matching each other perfectly. yeah, it was just like such a fun experience to work with Trim Tech, who, I went to them and was like, I want to design this little like built-in bed, and they went with it. It's got a little book niche in it too, so you can come up here and you can read your book and look out at the trees, which is really nice. I also worked with a decorative painter to stencil the floors. And one of the reasons why I did that was because it was a horrible 90s orange stain on the floors, and it would have been actually more expensive for me to strip them and restain them. So I was like, this is a perfect opportunity to just like paint over them. And again, it was something that I've always wanted to try. So I worked with her to create a custom stencil for the floor, and use some vintage rugs, actually, some vintage rug borders for my inspiration. So you'll see there's kind of like that wave-like pattern, and that was taken from a vintage rug that I had found and wanted to like repeat that motif. The orange color is Pharaoh and Ball Charlotte's Locks, and my daughter's name is Charlotte, and I was just like, I always, like in the back of my mind, I knew that in some project in our house, I wanted to incorporate that color. And she's much more of a pink girl, so wasn't gonna go in her room, but I felt like this was the perfect application for that color. It just brings kind of like, it breaks up all of the cool blue and green tones and brings in that like rosier tone that actually goes nicely with the peach undertone in the striped wallpaper. And then these cafe curtains, again, I love cafe curtains because they still bring in a good amount of light. They were inspired by a tea towel that I bought at an antique store. I think I still have it downstairs. It was blue with this little like lace, like two lace stripes. And so I showed it to my workroom, Cindy, and asked her to make something that was similar, and she just like nailed it. It's just so pretty, and it feels very light and girly in the room. Really feels pretty. So again, we didn't have overhead light in this space, and it was going to be tricky to add one because of that peak in the ceiling. So instead I chose to do a plug-in pendant that just runs up the wall and across the ceiling. And it's nice to have the overhead lighting in here, especially when you're in here at night. And because otherwise we've only got two little lamps. So it was definitely needed. And then otherwise I've included some like vintage and new pieces. I wanted to keep the floor fairly open because my children come in here and play, and then if they have friends over here, they come in and play too. So I didn't want to like clutter it up with too much furniture. So this piece is actually from an estate sale, and we use it to tuck away some of the toys that are in here. And then my mom's tip, something that she always taught me, and like still to this day asks if a room has, is a luggage rack. So that's like my number one tip when you have a guest room, is to have a luggage rack so that people aren't placing their suitcase on your lovely, crisp, clean bedding. And this is a needlepoint one that I also picked up at an estate sale, and it's a beautiful luggage rack. So this chair is from Chaddock, one of my favorite furniture lines, and again, I wanted to source something that felt feminine, so doing something skirted felt really good in here. And I used this is like a very crisp cotton fabric from Schumacher. And this little window, I went back and forth with like what to do in here, whether to do a window seat, but ultimately I felt like it was kind of nice to tuck in on it, sit on a chair and tuck into the corner here. And this guy swivels too, so you can, face out the window if you want, which I thought was nice. And then we've got a cute light from Matt Alford here too, which can be raised up and down. So depending on the person's height that's sitting here, they can change it so it works best for them. And I really thought the roof lines in this space were just so special, right? It's not like every day you get to design an attic bedroom that has all of these really interesting angles to it. So I felt like enhancing it would be a really beautiful idea. And I just used like a gross grain ribbon that I glued up there. And I think it like makes this little space. It makes it feel like it's its own unique moment in the room and really enhances those angles. So this is actually my 4th career. In hindsight, I've been designing since I was a little kid, and my mom, it was always a hobby of hers as well. So I grew up in Connecticut, and we would go into New York all the time to different showrooms, the D&D building. Oh my gosh, went to countless antique stores as a child. So it's something that's certainly ingrained in me, but to be perfectly honest, I didn't know it was a career option. I always thought it was just a hobby or something that I enjoyed. I'm from a family of doctors, so it was either you become a doctor, a lawyer, or you go into finance. So the thought of going into a creative career just I didn't think about it until later in life. So I have 3 unrelated degrees, including a master's in clinical social work, which does come in handy when working with clients, I'm not gonna lie. But it wasn't until I had my daughter in 2020 that I started thinking about, as I'm sure many people reassessed their lives, I thought, okay, like what really brings me joy? What would I feel most passionate about doing? And so I went back to school for design at that time and established my career. And I was mainly doing small projects for friends and family to start, and it kind of snowballed. And so a year ago, I left a firm in Chicago and I started my own business, and it's been so much fun. I mean, it just doesn't feel like work, which I think is a real blessing. I feel like I find inspiration in so many places, but my favorite way to find inspiration is through travel. I love going to Europe and looking at old architecture, going into design and vintage shops in Europe, and even like looking at vintage textiles. I find a lot of inspiration looking at vintage textiles and wallpapers, particularly when it comes to colors and how colors used to be combined. I also love shopping and find a lot of inspiration going to Round Top, Texas. It's one of my favorite places, and of course there you can see vintage and antique pieces from all over the world. But yeah, I'd say mostly through shopping and travel. Those are my main places I love pulling inspiration from. So this is my studio space, and originally this whole upstairs attic, I'm pretty sure, was where the staff lived. So there's quite a bit of space, and there's a ton of original storage too. So you can see there's so much storage here, like built-ins behind me. I also have a really cool like samples closet in the hallway. It's just amazing to have so much space in my own house to work in. And yeah, so we also admittedly use this space when we have like friends over to watch the Super Bowl or something, because it's got a big sectional and a larger TV too. So it does also have a function for my family as well. So this sectional we already had. It's a modular white or ivory sectional from Row, and I felt really guilty about getting something new. So rather than doing that, especially because it fits perfectly in here, but so what I did was I just took the back cushions and I had them recovered in kantha quilts, these Indian quilts that are actually made out of old saris. And it just, like, each pillow is unique, which I think is fun. It brings a bit of like eclecticism to the room while also feeling like really characterful. And it's functional. They're easily washable and wipeable. Like if my kids get any crumbs on them, it was an easy and affordable way to kind of like give this white sectional new life. And then, yeah, so these are all original built-ins here. So I do keep a lot of styling accessories in them. And again, going back to my love of France, I just love French advertisements. And these are 3 vintage ones that I picked up on eBay. The colors are perfect, and yeah, it's, you know, I just think that they're fun and very, very highly graphic. So the coffee table was actually a piece that we had in our Chicago house, and I had it custom made for that living room because it was a really, really big living room. But I just didn't want to get a new piece for the sake of getting a new piece, because it fits perfectly here, and it's become such a nice way to lay out samples. You can see I've got a couple projects going right now that I use it for scheming. It's great to have this large table space for that purpose. So this is the kitchenette space in my studio, and there was something here before, but I think it was done in the 80s. It was absolutely horrible. So we've recently gutted this, and because there isn't a ton of cabinetry here, I felt like I could, you know, do something a little bit more unique. The backsplash tile is from Zia, and it's a Zalige. It's just, because it's not a big space, I didn't want to bring in so many different patterns. So it just kind of carries this blue color down, which I really love. It's just a nice wash of color while not feeling overly busy and still bringing some texture. I also wanted to add an upper cabinet, but it's tricky because of the roof line here. So I did something a little sneaky. Because we can't open into the slope of the ceiling, what I did was I had a push hinge added on this side. So even though, whoops, and that one open, even though it looks like the hardware is here and you would open from this side, you can't actually do that because of the roof line. So it's a little bit sneaky here, a way to kind of get around the architectural issues. So the sconces are from Hudson Valley Lighting. I love their lights. I feel like they have such a good range of options, and many of them have a bit of a vintage character to them. And then this overhead light is just from Rejuvenation. So, you know, this space is definitely a good mix of high and low. The goal was for it to feel tailored, a bit preppy, and also vintage inspired as well. So tucked around the corner from my kitchenette is this little office nook. It's probably my favorite. Well, I do really like the attic bedroom. It's my second favorite area in the house, probably again because it's another little tiny attic space. It is just so charming and such a nice place to work. I'm right in front of the house here, so I get to look out at the street, and it brings in so much beautiful natural light during the day. It's such a dreamy place to do some work. I worked with Trimtech to create 2 built-in desks, and I sourced a Delphi wall covering. They're probably, I don't know, one of my favorite wallpaper lines. They're based out of upstate New York, and all of their papers are vintage inspired as well. But I just love, again, this teal color and the yellow. It feels, even though we're all the way upstairs in the attic space, it still feels connected to the other parts of my house. It doesn't feel like it's a complete departure, which was important to me. This piece is from Moldova, actually. I bought it on Etsy. And again, I wanted something that felt a bit translucent, but it does have kind of an opalescent quality to it too. So it just brings a hint of color. And while it looks like these panels or these panes should have existed, I added them. So these were just plain glass, and I brought them to a window guy out in Oak Park, and he added the leading to them too. So but it really looks like they should have existed, back in the 1890s. So it made sense to use both sides of the space rather than having a free-floating desk. I knew that if I really capitalized on the length of each wall, it would allow me to add 2 desks as well as a good amount of storage space. So these desks here, we use the drawer space for sample storing as well as for like office supplies too. But they're nice and deep and are very, very functional. And because we have, so it's myself and Giselle, who's my associate designer who works with me, it's nice to work in the same space too. I mean, while we have like all that other room over there and can certainly go take a call over there and be away from each other, it's a nice way to both work in like the same environment. So these chairs are new. They're from Villa and House, and they're kind of like a Cerussed white oak. They have a really pretty texture to them. And again, like, maybe it's because I'm from the Northeast. I'm very into menswear inspired fabric. There's something about this fabric that feels like a men's rep tie. And felt like really preppy and buttoned up, which is how I wanted the rest of the space to feel, particularly that kitchenette. So yeah, they've got like, again, that beautiful like green peacock color with a light blue and the pop of black. They feel very, very like preppy. It's also an off-shape room too, as with like, so many of these rooms. Standard 8x10, 9x12, etc. wasn't going to work well. So this is an off-size natural fiber rug that it feels warm and cozy, and while might not necessarily be needed in an office, it just brings so much depth to the space, and it makes it feel like these two desk areas are connected. And it's also, anytime you go with natural fiber like this, it's less expensive. I probably wouldn't use a sisal rug in like my family room just because they're less durable than a wool rug. But for this purpose in the office, it's perfect because it's quite flat, so it's easy to run our chairs across. And again, it just makes the space feel warmer and more pulled together. Home is a feeling of security and safety and comfort. For me, it's a place that I can express myself, or my family can feel like they can be themselves and express themselves. It's a place where people, family, friends feel comfortable to gather and, a feeling of peace. Bye, Homeworthy. Thanks so much for coming. Have a good day.
Thanks for watching. Go to homeworthy.com for exclusive content and shopping guides.